For those of you who've never been over here with me alone, you might have met me on the Shaman's Cave with Sandra Ingerman, and I'm Renee Baribeau. I'm the other half of the Shaman's Cave. And, you know, I was thinking about that today, that sometimes I take for granted things like, you know, so many of Sandra's students would give, you know, their left shaman stone to be sitting there, and you know, people have known her all over the world. And I don't know, I took it very lightly for the longest time. And they're like, well, why'd she pick the wind? You know, why did she pick me to sit here with her? You know, like, what was in her spirit that knew that this was, you know, the right appropriate work? And a year later, and one just sitting there and showing up for ceremony every single week, week after week. And what you guys all miss is the backstories, the talking that we have before the show and after the show. And we've become really friendly, and that is a really important part of my life. And what it really did was, it was the trick of the winds to get me there, where I started like having to show up in ceremony, because, you know, Sandra likes her ceremony every single week. And, you know, I pride myself in being the practical shaman, whereas you know, I'm going to have to mute people too, so I can get this recording. Bridget, you can unmute yourself. But that I pride myself in, you know, being practical business. You know, I'm very comfortable teaching tomorrow, you know, the business part. And I'm kind of finally excited that I get to teach, you know, how to be more social in a distancing kind of environment. And what I realized is that it's pushed my work, and it's pushed me deeper. And the tree that she suggested we all get friendly with a year ago is still the tree, and it might be time for a new tree. But tonight we're gathered for the spring equinox gathering, and I want to say that it's the largest gathering we've ever had. And because I believe there's chaos in the world, and I also believe, and again, you know, the wind keeps revealing these wind epiphanies to me, which is a word that Bridget gave me, is that I got an email out of the blue last week on instant messaging from Facebook from somebody I hadn't talked to in a couple of 2 or 3 years, who said, I was deep in meditation, and the wind, the messenger came and said, you need to reconnect with that woman who does the wind work. She has the messages for this time, and or something like that. But it was like, it came out of the blue, and it was like, wow, isn't that something? Because, you know, you start, when you write a book and it's 2 years later, you start to take things for granted. And I don't mean that I take it for granted, but that it is the work of this time. And I knew that when I was spending 5 or 6 years writing the book. And I started writing a new book really recently, and then this pandemic happened, and my book actually that I was writing, you know, before all of this, was about how do we live now. And so jumping into this gathering, it's going to be, how do we live now? Before we get into the ceremony part, and tonight is very experiential. In fact, we're going to do an exercise. We're going to talk about the exercise. We're going to do another exercise. We're going to talk about that exercise, and I'm going to invite you to consider joining us this spring for wind work basics. And a lot of you who came through the Shift Network know, well, I already had wind work in deep, but we kind of work backwards around here. We get you excited, and then we teach you, you know, how this really works. But a couple of my people who have been with me are going to speak about how their lives have changed. And I really think the biggest part about why I would encourage you to join is that I think now is the time that we need our partners in community who are willing to go deep enough into the wind in order to get the answers their community needs. So it's kind of a selfish, not selfish program. But I was giving people a few minutes to gather here, and Bridget's watching the chat, and I think Terry might be in the chat too, I don't know. But so she's doing that. And what we're going to do is we're going to open up sacred space. And what I'd like to do is do you know how to raise your hands? Do a lot of you have your wind whistles handy and stuff like that? We're going to do the wind breath. Yay. So what we're going to do the wind breath is, for those of you who are new to this work, is we have wind whistles, but you can use your breath. You can use, you can go like this. You know, this is just a tool. It's a beautiful tool, albeit, but it's a tool. And we're going to call in the winds. And I waited till I get on the call to find out which wind we are going to merge with for this particular set of ceremonies. Before we start with that, the last ceremony we're going to do is that first we're going to find our current coordinates. We're going to talk about it. Then we're going to find some resistance about this current coordinate. We're going to remove it. And then if you stay around to the end, and some of you might say, hey, this isn't for me, and leave somewhere in the middle. If you stay around to the end, is what we're going to do is we're going to have the direction we're traveling. We're going to be on our spin axis, and we're actually going to anchor to something in our community that's going to be keeping us strong. Like last night, for example, I have a mountain out here that I walk towards every night. And when I was shown this exercise, I was shown that I also needed to anchor to a mountain to the other side of me. So don't jump ahead. But what we're going to do is we're going to be actually anchoring into the earth, anchoring into something that a cardinal wind, and anchoring into the land. How does that sound? Bridget's shaking her head, so I think she likes it. All right. So we're going to call upon a helping spirit for our work today. And for those of you who don't even know anything, Winds of Spirit is a book that Hay House published a couple of years ago. It's won a Nautilus Gold in Religion. And it's funny, it won a Nautilus Gold in Religion. And my next book talks about a time before religion, a time before shamanism, a time before all of this. And they probably won't be honoring me in the religion category anymore. But oh well. So let's reach into the wind sack, and the winds come in sacks, but I have them in a box today. They don't care. Doesn't that sound cool, that end journey? Mm-hmm. I know. Well, isn't this the truth? I almost want to cry. The wind that I just pulled, and I don't know why it's making me really extra sad, is Tate, the Lakota Sioux wind. That's the messenger, and it's about listening with our heart. Wow, isn't that an appropriate wind for this call? Mm-hmm. And why this wind's extra appropriate for me is that my spiritual work started in the Lakota Sweat Lodge. I spent 10 years putting blankets and bringing water, and I did a vision quest, and I carry a Chinupa. And it's kind of a mixed blessing for me of a lot of hurt and a lot of pain and a lot of, gratitude. So, and that's kind of what's going on now. If we look out in the world, is what's going on. So I'd love all of us to get ready. And I'm sitting because I'm kind of in my studio, but for you, if you could, you can either stand up or you can stay sitting, however it works for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a wind breath out. We're going to exhale all of this fear, all of this pandemic, all of this life-shifting stuff that just went on. And we're going to exhale it all on that first one as we build this community. And then we're going to breathe in a willingness to listen with our hearts tonight. And then on the next one, we're going to actually breathe out this from our heart space that we could get connected to this Lakota wind of Tate. And then on the third wind breath in, what we're going to do is we're going to hold in that wind, that light that's surrounding us that we carry forward. And we're going to put a big energy bubble around us and our community. And I mean your community locally. Don't try to go for this whole community. Why don't we just go? Because I think our work now is with our neighbors and with the people that we're in isolation with, and the people that we're having this experience with, and the people here on this call. So let's do it that way. How does that sound? Mm-hmm. All right. So the first one, when you blow out, imagine that there's an envisionary, there's I call it a spin axis that goes in through the center of your head, and it connects into the magnetic pole of the earth. And it will never fail you if it's connected. All of the other things but if you're connected to your earth space and you know where you are at all times, you will be okay in the storm. So in the first one, we're going to breathe out any apprehension, any fear, any anxiety, the money, all of that is not important in this moment. Okay, let's go. Everyone get their wind whistles. And should I'm going to unmute everyone. So if you got sound going on, that's not your wind whistle, please mute yourself. All right. All right.
Whoa.
Breathe in all of the love that Tate has to offer you so that you can hold this time in your heart. Hold it to a count of 10. And breathe it out and connect with Tate. Stay empty. And on this third wind breath, let's put an energy bubble around all of us on this call and everybody in our local communities, that we're safe and that we learn to listen with our hearts. Breathe it out. Wow. That was beautiful, everyone. Wow. Bridget, you might want to unmute yourself again. Was that just incredible? I mean, now I really want to cry. I think I will just sit here and cry. Let's just all sit here and cry together. So let me see how I get out of here. So I said at the end of the call, I'm going to talk to you about Windwork Spring, Basic Spring. And I'm going to make a very special offer at the end for anyone who's really, which is all of us being affected, that, you know, a huge discount so that people can take this and be part of this community with us. So I don't know any other way to do that except for, you know, share these gifts from the wind. Oh, I was going to do this. I was going to be more organized, but I guess I'm not. So look at this beautiful picture. And this is the wind bubble that we just made. And clearly, clearly we're in a time. And what I want to talk to you about a little bit is about the wind work in terms of the cosmology of the wind work. So you know where we are. We Wind Clan members believe that everything is a cycle, and it's very shamanic, but what the next book is it's going back to before shamanism. So I'm going to start to use the term shamanist tools, because I don't want to get people tripped up, but they were called shamanist tools. They were called tools that other people we had access to. So the first part of my new book is giving everybody permission to reclaim their supernatural powers and showing us where that was lost over the centuries, actually over the millennial. And so as you know, as a tree cycle goes, it's very interesting that this is the equinox when the light and the dark are balanced. And what's going on now is that we have been reset. and I will go into that more. But what this whole work is about is actually moving us from a linear timescape into a more cyclical life pattern that did exist. It still exists. We have access to it. But one thing I do want to note a little bit of caution is everyone who jumped timelines with me in the winter had major life-changing experiences, because in between, if imagine here that there's two circles. There's this tree life cycle and then a second tree life cycle. Well, what I've come to understand in the last month or so is that in between, well, I've known about the gap in between. Like, I learned about the gap very early when I was doing a hembleche, that I noticed that the day reset itself. All of a sudden, like, time stood still if there was a time, and then everything reset. Well, we do that in nature too. And so, but in between, in this reset, there's a gap of time. So in a day, it might be a shorter period of time than at the end of an epoch, which we're in, you know, that whole end of the Mayan calendar and all of those other things, an epoch ended. But that doesn't mean that the next epoch began. What it means is that we're in the gap. And in between getting in and out of gaps is a wobble. It's just an unshaky time period. And so we've just been shooken. We've been just shooken up. I've been just shooken up into this gap, and all of us have. And so if there's a beginning point in time or space at which something starts, we're at the end, we're in the gap, and we've just been, and this is the way I saw it the other night, and you might think I'm crazy. Some people don't even know what a spinner's wheel is that there's this flap. And the flap, when you spin the wheel, the flap goes, and you know, like if you're hoping for the prize at the fair of the wind whistle, or, you know, the glass of water, you know, you don't know where that's going to land. And so we just kind of landed into, well, I put it, and my joke was, we landed between science and misaturn. But I really believe we're exactly where we're supposed to be. And one of those signs of that today is if you look at the canals over in Venice, I guess the water's perfectly clear right now, and there's been whales in the harbor. And, you know, the last thing we had in Venice was a flood, and my friend happened to be there at that time, and it was filthy, overcrowded, and all of these other things. But all we do is get sent home and things change. But we crossed a threshold. And people think this isn't about any conspiracy theories or anything like that. I just want you to know I'm not that girl, but there's no going back to this threshold that we just crossed. And I'm going to show you why. This was last year's slide from the spring equinox. We have moved away from nature and lost our bearings. So we you know, this was a billboard. All right. This is this year's slide. We have moved away from nature and we've lost our bearings. This was my grocery store last night. And so there's no ever going back to this time before now. We like, imagine your spinner's wheel. So we just crossed a threshold where the whole world knows pandemic. And it happened many hundreds of years ago, but not in our lifetime, where everyone could be put into a situation where on lockdown, and, you know, and we have to reset whether we like it or not. To me, this could be a real blessing in disguise for us if we practice our spiritual practices and we know exactly where we are at this time, and we understand the effect that this new epoch, this new vision, this new reality is forevermore. And there's been some other things, but this one, to me, in my entire life, I've never walked into the grocery store and the shelves were bare. Mm-hmm. I've never gone up to the counter and somebody said, oh no, you have to put one of those meats back. You know, and the only reason I even grabbed that third one was because I went there last night and this is what I saw. So I'm there like, asparagus looks good, you know, whatever was on the shelves. And so I'm not saying this is doomsday. I'm just saying we have gone into the void. And so it's really timely that we're all here now and we're all kind of going to find out where we are at this moment. All right. And that's all I'm caring about. For me, these are all fact-finding missions. They're not like, I don't judge it, although I have to say that it's a little concerning that several people I know are in the hospital with unrelated to this pandemic causes. You know, a good friend died last week. I mean, a lot of people didn't make it through this wobble, and probably a lot more people won't. But you're here, you're on this call. That means you want to know where you are, what your current coordinates are, and you believe that there just might be something in this wind work that can help you navigate these tumultuous winds. So I'm going to explain this exercise. So the first part of the exercise, and if you joined late, this is very experiential tonight. It's 3 different exercises. The first one is we're going to find our current coordinates. The second part is we're going to see what our resistance to those current coordinates are. And the third part is we're going to anchor into a new anchor, because what happened is when we moved, our anchors have moved. And in the Windwork basic class, which is supposed to be basic, what I understand is if you've ever seen a gyroscope on a ship, which I have a picture of it somewhere else, that the compass actually moves. Well, we need to be able to, our compasses now need to be able to move. And that's what we're going to be working on in the Windwork Basics class, is re-navigating our compasses so that they're movable, that they can flow on a storm in the ocean. But for tonight, I want to give you some real, I want you, if you never do this work again, which I hope isn't true, I want you to be able to have a tool that you can use daily to know where you are at all times. So this one's is really simple. It's a little guided meditation, and I'm going to work up. The first one is a guided meditation. The second one, I'm going to use the wind whistle. And the third one, we're going to actually do a rattle journey or a drum journey. I never know until we get there. All right. So close your eyes if you're comfortable. And find yourself somewhere that you love in nature. And it might be someplace that you're going to go to at each part of these journeys tonight, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. And as you're looking around, seeing what kind of day it is, if there's anything else in your space you need to be paying attention to. And then start to walk. And as you're walking, start to pay attention to the signs. And ask, if you don't see a signpost, am I facing north? Is there a north wind blowing in my face? Is there an east wind coming through? Is there a south wind? Is there a west wind? What direction are you facing? And once you have a sense of that, open your eyes and let us know in the chat box what direction you are. Trying to see if there's any patterns going on. Oh, this is great. So there isn't really a pattern, so we're all facing different directions. So we didn't even need to talk about what the situation was, because I'd kind of been gearing us up for that, you know, that we've just entered into a new phase, a new gap going towards a new epoch. And so what the question that was for me is like, how is this influencing your life at this moment? And so if you are facing east, and you have your paper, so you can spend a minute working on this and writing this down. For those going in the east, it's all about your mind, memories, and beliefs. Did you premonition this time? What do you believe about it? What do you think about it? What do you, what's going on? What are your ideas about this? So if you're heading in the south, how are you feeling? Are you in fear? Are you in panic? Are you afraid for other people? I mean, what's your overriding feeling right now? Are you joyous that finally you get to stay home for a month? You know, what is it that you're feeling right now? So somebody didn't feel the wind, and that's okay. You could be in a no wind period, but the golden setting sun, so that mean was the wind was on your cheek, you were facing west. The north, no wind is okay, because no wind is actually a state. And you know, in the wind spirit cards, there's 2 no winds in the deck. What action are you taking? As this, are you, cleaning out your closets? What action are you taking? Are you, searching for food? What are you doing? What are you, what are you thinking? Or what actions are you taking towards this? And then, what is your new vision for the community, knowing that we've crossed a threshold? Someone just asked that the call is recorded. Yes, it is recorded. Hey, what I would like to know is if you want to put a couple of ideas of what you were thinking, what you were feeling, what action you're taking, what's the new vision in the message, you could. And if you really have one that you are really surprised at, are really short and think that would be useful to people, you can raise your hand and we could call on a couple of people here. Or just write them. And you know what, we could save it for later too. Just make sure you make a note. So this is your first coordinate on that piece of paper that you have. So mark it down if you printed it out. So just like if you, where's that piece of paper? Hold on. Did I put it here? Okay, so make a note on your piece of paper where that was that you were facing the wind. This will become important later. And if you don't have if you didn't download it, you could, you could just draw a circle and put it on there for now. And know that you're at the center of this. At the center of it is your spin axis that we set when we did the calling in the direction. Which is which direction on here? The top is north, unless you're in the southern hemisphere. This is like one time we all share, we all share the equinoxes together. The bottom for me is the south. The one on the left is the east and west, but I've tried to be as non-northern hemisphere as I could possibly be. I usually mark these things up with an inch of their lives. You still with me, everyone here? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So what we want to start to do is we're going to need to establish some new bearings using this inner compass and the wind. And so we call to Tate tonight. So we have that one bearing of where we're facing now. Then we're working with Tate, the wind of the messenger of our hearts. and we're going towards setting that up. All right, so this over here is that gyro I'm talking to you about. So in the center, you see the spin axis, and then the spinner is right around here, but this moves so that it can always be in balance. Now, in my more advanced work, which the Wind Work Basics probably always says it's basics, but it always gets a little more advanced than we like, it is basic though, right, Bridget? We keep it basic.
Oh.
And then if I throw it to a left-hand curve, Bridget always explains it the next time in the integrations, and we get everyone back on track. But because the work comes in faster than sometimes than I can really process it. So what we're going to do is using this same idea, but on one level of our experience, we're going to actually anchor somewhere into our own land. And my mountain that I always try to take a picture of, it doesn't really ever come out very well. I was thinking when I was walking towards it last night that in Peru, you know, the shaman used to say to me, La Rana. It was this little frog mountain. And all the time I thought he was telling me that La Rana, that frog mountain, was my mountain. But what he meant, just came to me last night, was he meant that I had a little mountain too. That mountain in Peru might be my Peru mountain, but that I have a little mountain that I've been living in relationship to for 20 years. It's weird you don't notice these things for 20 years, but 25 years, whatever. So the important part of all of this is that we are nature. So we are this virus. We are our brothers and sisters in Italy. We are not separate. So the same wind that we're breathing out here in this ceremony is going to go around and benefit everybody, because the wind we breathe out today is going around the world. And in the desert, we've had like this really steady wind for days. And I can only think that it's a good omen, you know, that the wind is clearing, because the same wind has been around on the planet for 4 billion years. So it's clearing the space as we go. And what a gift that is. So what over here, when if you're looking at this compass now, I purposely didn't mark your other one, but you know, it's your mind, memories, and belief, your emotional needs and desires. Your west is your harvest, your physical ending, and your north is your community support. And so, you know, so this is really important, because now what we're going to do is we're going to look at that direction we are facing in, and we're going to look at what our resistance, or somebody said that they've just surrendered and accepting it. Well, what I want to ask is, how are you still going to be surrendered and accepting it? Like last night when I was taking a walk and I realized I just couldn't hop in the car and go to Trader Joe's for some ice cream after my walk, because, you know, I can live alone a long time. I'm a writer, I'm a painter, you know, I do all this stuff, but then all of a sudden it's like, well, that means that too. So I wonder how accepting we're going to be week 3 of this, or, you know, week 4 of this. So I found myself being snotty with Zoom the first day in. I'm thinking like, wow, what kind of human being are you? So what might not look like resistance now could certainly show up as resistance in another day. And then I'm there like, it wasn't that important. You know, you think like, oh, this is only going to affect this, but no, this is going to affect everything in your life going forward. So just imagine you just tossed your entire life to the wind, and it's going to reassemble in a new format for you. Now tell me, what are your resistances? And so what I want you to do is look throughout your body here. What does that say? Does it say clearing your resistance? Oh, good. So look throughout your body. I've got to move things around. I need 2 screens. Look throughout your body and say, this just changed my life. Where is any resistance living, living in me right now? And start with your toes and just go all the way up. Like, oh, there's some in my back, you know, there's some in my throat. Where is it living in you? Tightness, gut. And say that thing that came up, whether that new question, that new emotion, that new physical responsibility, you know, or that I had just started a construction project in my bedroom. I had to decide whether or not I was be able to close it off and let somebody into my house or not. So that's a little bit of resistance. I want to be in my bedroom. I'm crammed into the guest room. So it's not necessarily, it's just like whatever it is. I'm feeling not valued where I work because I can't go there and help. How's that one? I can't be of service to somebody else. My mom's on the East Coast. Where is that resistance living in you? And I just gave you a whole long list of my own. And that's kind of very interesting because I didn't necessarily see them. You all have some? Look at her. This looks how I look right now. Remember that spin axis goes through your body. Your body is your awakening compass. And these are all terms, the wind spirit cards, the awakening compass, all of this are the terms that I go through week by week in the wind work basics. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use we're going to use Tate, our wind, and our wind spirit, to clear, you just missed that beautiful picture I took, to clear, these are the wind spirit cards, this is the wind whistle phase, and then we're going to use these, and these are also terms that I go way deep into the, in the class, but now we're going to clear the resistance, and what this is somebody doing a wind bath. And you can go outside and you can do this wind bath. And I would suggest going through and clearing out all of these different levels of resistances, because just remember, you just moved through the wall of the last epoch. Things will never be the same again. I don't care where you are in the world, but things are not going to be the same again. This was like a threshold we just walked through as a global community, and we have resistance to it. And I don't know where it's living in your body, but let's call it to Tate to clear it. So again, that first wind breath I taught you about, bringing it down, taking that wind of Tate down through your head, bringing it down your spin axis, anchoring that spin axis into the earth, and letting everything that goes that's below your waist go down into the earth. And if something else wants to go too, good. Take it from your gut, take it from your solar plexus, wherever, send it down into the earth. The second one, when we bring in that wind breath, we're going to blow it out and we're going to move through all of the resistance. And the third one, feel the wind coming through your heart, because Tate is coming in from the heart and blowing out just heart wave love throughout your body to clear any pieces of this resistance to the change. Are we ready? Blow out more through your feet. I feel a lot of black gunk and a lot of resistance in people's lower extremities and out their legs. And on this next wind breath, bring in the light of spirit and through the top of your head to clear away any resistance that you have between you and the connection to all the wind believers, all the wind breath all around the world. And now we're going to bring in Tate through our hearts to actually clear with those love heart waves. That heart map has done such a brilliant job of mapping, and let them vibrate through your entire body, out through your home, out through your community, all throughout your surrounding areas. Shake it off. Any realizations you had, write them down. Wow, I feel a lot altered. How about you?
Definitely.
All right, before we go to anchoring the new point, what I wanted to do is I wanted to bring in Bridget and Terry. I think, Terry, you're here too. Can you raise your hand? Where is she? So I'll bring in Terry first, Bridget. And so Terry came to us unsuspecting over the solstice gathering. And we were really fortunate because she remained as one of the four, holding the four directions through the 9-week program we did together at the Shift Network. And I don't know how many people on this call were with us, raise your hand, but it was life-changing work. So Terry, I asked her if she'd say a few words about, because she had never experienced the wind work before that time. And she said she would tell us a few words about what she got from it.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Did you just clear your throat or what?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on. So, so hi everybody. Boy, the wind work is. I mean, I had no idea when I signed up for the wind work. I'm a shamanic teacher, a practitioner, and I've worked with the wind. It's an element. It's something, we do. We work with all the elements, air, fire, water. I thought wind, And I'm also an astrologer, and I looked at, I happened to come across, again, the wind work, and Renee had been advertising it. And I looked at the sort of the chart of the starting, and I thought, whoa, that's really calling to me. So I signed up for this thing, and wow. All I want to say is, wow. If you want to step into yourself in a very, very, very deep way, these winds are going to partner you and transform you in ways that you just have no idea. And if you want to step into that in a conscious way, Renee is an amazingly powerful teacher, and she partners with these winds, and she takes you through some work that goes through a real archaeological dig of yourself, and you come out the other side. And I'm laughing because my life is changed actually quite a bit since I signed up for this. And so I can't say enough about this work. And you're thinking while you're doing it, this whole thing about linear and just circular time, you're thinking, oh yeah, well, I'll just do this and I'll do that. But it really, really captures your psyche in a way that I've never experienced. And I've done a lot of work in my life. I'm kind of somebody that is very courageous, and I'm willing to dig into my stuff. But the wind work can just, excuse my French, but kick your butt and get you aligned in that spin axis. That is just, it's tremendous. It's tremendous. I really can't say enough. And I thank Renee as well. And Bridget, are you going to be part of that? Are you going to do some pieces? Well,
I'll be doing the integration call again.
Yeah, the integration. So you'll get Renee as teacher, and then you also get Bridget, who, will take a piece of the work and explain it in a way that is so thorough. And not that Renee isn't kind, but there's a kindness that has...
Yes, she's right. I'm not kind, right?
No, I'm not saying in that, but just there's a different style. So you introduce it, Renee, but then Bridget takes it and brings a kind of a fluffed out, not fluff, I don't mean in that way that's superficial, but she expands, she makes it a little bit more 3D. So between the two of you, you get this real, very thorough way of transforming through the winds. So what else could I say? You know, thanks for letting me speak. Yeah, it was tremendous. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sherry.
Well, I don't know, Bridget, if there's much to say after that, but you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think the only thing, well, there's a couple things. One, I always share that Renee has the hardest job because she is the voice and the legs for the wind. So she's working with an element that we normally don't pay that much attention to unless it's blowing us over, right? And so she has the hard job. I have the fun job of like, okay, you got tossed around by Renee. Now come in, get, you know, I'll tuck you in, give you a glass of warm milk, you know. So I have the job. But one of the things that the wind really taught me very early on is anything that I'm resisting in my life will show up in the wind, and anything that I'm out of integrity with will be brought to my attention through the wind. And so I think of the wind relationship that I've developed as being one of getting back into integrity in all the areas that I was out of balance prior to. And that was how the wind came to me, is it was blowing me over on a beach in the Dominican, and it was driving me crazy. I could not take it. And I considered myself a spiritual person. And I was screaming at the wind on a vacation, like, leave me alone. This hurts. I don't want to do this anymore. And that's how I came into relationship with Renee. And my life doesn't look anything like it did 3.5 years ago or 3 years ago at all.
And I have a picture to prove it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. We met in person at Omega. And just, this is the other thing that I wanted to say. Yes, you're possibly entering into the community and taking a class, and we've all done online classes. But what's different about this community is it's really authentic, and it is a super safe space. And I have been in a lot of online communities, and our community is unique. And I think it's because we are in relationship with the wind, and the wind is constantly keeping us in integrity. You know, and so what's happening in my personal life is also reflected within the community life as well. So that's one of the biggest things about the wind clan that I can really attest to, is we are in integrity, and it's a beautiful community. So hope that more of you will be joining us.
Awesome.
It was great, Bridget. Yeah.
Thank you both. And so what I'm going to offer here before, and you know, this kind of was a wind structured thing where I was told to put this in because not everybody who was listening earlier, some people have left, a few of them, were ready for the next part of this experience. So if you're still here and you're still listening, then you're ready to do the next anchoring piece with me. And before we do that, because I don't like to, once we anchor and once we do this, I like to let people have their process. You can come over to the Wind Clan and talk about your process, and that's great, or email me about it, or if you want to sign up. But anyone who's on this call tonight, and I know that you are, I mean, I know that people are struggling, is that anyone who signs up who's listened tonight will receive the class for $149. And that's 4 weeks of me, a second call every week with Bridget, and hopefully that can work out in your budget at all. And if you need me to split that into 2 parts, let me know. You can, do that. Talk to me, because it's the wind is the messenger of this new epoch. And so I hope you're here to, hope you're here to trailblaze it with us. And I learned a lot from the people doing it with us. It's not just me. All right. So the next part is going to be the actual journey part. And I believe that this this is the stuff. Okay. But now we're anchoring for your retreat. This is to anchor you so that you can do the humanity, the human work, the soul work that's being required of us right now. And that you know that no matter what, how it looks, because remember, it's even parts dark and light today. So we're moving, depending on where you are, you might be moving towards the darkness or you might be moving towards the light, but the light is never going to be the same again, because we just faced something big together collectively that we haven't had to do. And that being said, I have Jan laughing over here at me. Are you laughing? All right, so we're going to do a journey. And so there's 3 parts of this journey, or the parts of the journey that we're going to go back out to the place that we were in nature. We're going to reconnect our spin axis, which remember is that axis that goes down through you to the center of the earth. And we're going to start slowly spinning clockwise into, oh good, somebody lives right at the equator, of course, where you know no wind then, the doldrums. Oh, you do? How cool is that? So we're going to stand there in our spin axis out in nature. We're going to do 1 full rotation to the whatever the wind direction you were facing in the first part, whether it would be the east. So start in the east and do 1 full rotation. If you're in the south, 1 full rotation. If you're in the west, 1 full rotation. If you're in the north, 1 full rotation, so that you're back to the place of the wind that you were facing in the first part. All right. And then we removed our resistances. So if there's any more resistance, let it flow off with the wind. And then this, oh, the spin axis. Okay. So the spin axis, see this top that's on the center of my picture? So imagine the spin axis is something that comes in from spirit through your soul. It's a soul axis that comes in upon your first wind breath and it goes out at your last wind breath out. But it connects you through your down, imagine down your spine, but it's kind of like right in front of your spine. It could be part of the chakra system, but it goes down into the center of the earth, into the magnetic pole. And it's what allows you to always know where your magnetic north is if you're listening to your body. Does that help? So so what we're going to do is we're going to be actually imagining ourselves standing out on nature with our legs shoulder width apart, with our knees slightly bent, and feeling that spin axis coming through us. And once we have that spin axis, then we'll do that spin clockwise. We're not unraveling, which is another process that I use sometimes, but we're going clockwise to a full rotation around. And then when we're facing the direction that we started, I'm going to give you another piece of instruction. So everyone close your eyes. And let's go back to that sacred place in nature. In what direction were you facing? What were you facing? What was the landmark? Was the wind blowing? Feel the wind. If there's no wind, that's okay too. Now start to spin clockwise, slowly, taking in all of the sights around you, seeing if there's any more resistance that needs to fall away. And remember, this is work we're doing with Tate that's coming from our voice of our heart. You're moving around. You should be about halfway around. Keep turning slowly, ever so slowly. Maybe 3/4 away around. And now you're facing back to that same direction from where you started. And now you're going to ask Tate, the messenger of the heart, as I'm standing here facing my current wind, my current direction. Show me a place in nature that might be to the east or to the south or to the west or to the north from where you're standing, that you're going to put an anchor spot in. So you're on your spin axis, you're facing a wind, and now you're going to create a triangle by finding a spot in nature that can anchor you as this world continues to spin with this chaotic wobble. But you'll be okay because you'll have this anchor spot. And once you anchor it, maybe pinch your finger or slap your thigh or something so that you, if you forget where it is, you can just give yourself a tap and you can directly go right back to it. And again, you can go back and do this later, actually outside in nature if you can't see a clear vision of where you are. And then come back into the room. Okay, so when you're ready, find yourself back in your body. And I want to show you on your chart. So in the center where these arrows meet in the middle this is where your spin axis is. Okay. And then you're going to be marking that first direction up here somewhere, which you already did, of where you were facing. So I was facing south. So this for me is south, but for Jan, it might be something different for you depending on which way you're north of the equator. Okay. And so then what you're going to do is, so my anchor point is southwest, right about here. So this becomes my working triangle for this time period of rest and retreat. So it looks like I'm going to be working between, probably knowing me, if I'm working in my south, which is the emotions, towards the west of doing the physical, it might be that I'm going to have to do a lot of sitting on my hands when I can't move something forward that I want to move forward, or that it could be an emotional time, or there's, who knows, but, where are your anchor points? So what does your triangle look like? You could be all the way over here and, have a straight line. I hope not, though. That one, I didn't plan for that one. But find your triangle and draw it. And then maybe if you want to share it with us, we could open some questions. All right. And as with a lot of the work, it's like sit with this and be quiet with it and be sacred with it. And for those people who've already registered for the class, thank you. It's not like now you're going to do it later, but I will give you an extra, I'll give you an extra $10 off on your wind whistle. So if you don't have one, you could get it for $25 if you've already paid for the class. And I don't want to get people confused, but if you register today, you'll also get $15. So what a great deal, $149 and $15 on that. But let's open it up. If you have questions or comments, or what you thought about this exercise, or what do you think about having a third anchor point? And in the Windwork Basic class, we're actually going to do this on a multi-dimensional level of where you're anchoring in on the gyroscope of it moving. Right now, this was more 3D, but we're going to do it more, or this is more 2D. We're going to do it 3D so that our compasses can be ready for the turbulent, whatever comes our way. Okay. All right. maybe we could, if you have a question, could you raise your hand so we could unmute you? Is there that? Okay, Jenny raised her hand. All right. All right, what's your, Jenny? You have a
Hi.
question? Hi.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you for taking my call. I have I was facing east and then south was my anchor point. So what's my third part of the triangle?
You're in the middle, your spin axis.
Oh, okay. And so do I color in that little triangle? I know I'm kind of working in that region.
Well, you could, or you could put some pictures in there. What we do in our classes is we've actually made our vision compasses with that, where we've decorated them. So go all go decorate, do how you want to know that this is your, how you maybe make a matching altar in your house, however it works for you best, but work with that time, work with this anchor. Because we want to strengthen this anchor, whatever it was for us, we want to strengthen it now so that we can become wind resistant.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Jan, you have a question?
I do.
Okay.
I do, because my anchor was north. So and I was south to begin with. So how do I create the triangle?
And that's funny. That's how I thought that. I got that. I'm there. Oh, I didn't plan for that. Well, you're a good advanced student, so I want to see how this shows for you. Or what you could do is you could pull. I got another idea. Why don't you pull down a second line? You could pull a second line right here, so that it will be a very thin space you're working in, but that it's like 1 degree off of the center of south, or two or 3 degrees, and give yourself that whole thing, and really take some good journey notes and stuff like that, because I want to see what that looks like.
Okay.
I knew it as soon as I'm like, oh no, there's somebody who got the north and the south.
Well, I'm also the one who also lives with equal days and nights for almost all year. So
yeah, so it might be just a real like subtle. It might be a real strength. I can't call it from here, but I want to watch it for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Renee.
Yeah.
Can I add one little?
Yeah.
So as I'm listening to Jan, I'm looking at it and just feeling into it. I wonder what the median point is for you. So like closer to the axis itself, like in that more stable place as opposed to the larger wobble, how that would be for her.
You mean drawing the triangle from the center?
Well, I'm just saying if you shorten the distance, so if you were more parts north and south as opposed to north and south, like just coming closer to the center, how that might work. What would be a question for that?
Well, that will be an interesting one. And I'm also wondering if she jumped ahead into the more advanced work where it's going to actually have a pivot point.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be too, but why don't you just work with that small piece of that? And somebody else had the west. So you were facing west, and Elizabeth, you're facing west, and your anchor point is right in that same direction. Like, so you got one mountain here, it's the same mountain that you're facing?
Yes, pretty much. I think it's not somewhere I've been yet, but I think it's somewhere I'm going to be in the autumn, that I saw myself kind of sat on this boulder and both. Yeah. So I was facing the west and the west wind, and then seemed to be in the same place.
It feels to me like when I'm feeling into it that it's a little bit further to the west. So when you talked about the boulder, I'm seeing something like it's not a big triangle, but it's a little bit off. Do you see, like it could be, so it's not going to be huge, but it's going to, and you know what, the other thing is for both of you and Jan, I would suggest going back and doing this again and going around a second time with the journey, going around the circle a second time and seeing where a point is that you can stop at for this work.
Mhm.
You know, like getting just enough of a degree so you can have a triangle.
Okay. Thank you.
So Shelley, so am I standing in the center of this circle here? Well, no, you're standing in the center of your own circle there, but this, you are the center of your own circle. Do you want to unmute yourself and tell us more?
I'm gonna go home. I think this.
Oh, I can review that too. Where's Shelley? Anyone's here?
Hi. Hi.
Oh. Hi, Shelley.
Can you hear me? Okay.
but,
So I just wondered because I was standing in the center and then I rotated around one revolution and I came back to the east. And then when I was thinking of my anchor point, I immediately went to the south.
Okay.
So I'm sort of like a coracle. So
That's
that's
okay.
where I'm joining the 3 points to make it. Okay.
All right. So
Okay,
in the,
then
you're
I
in the
guess I
center.
understand.
So somebody else had a very similar similar trajectory as you, so that you're working with a whole quarter of the compass.
It's really
This
interesting.
map.
Yeah, it's yours.
I think this is interesting.
Because I have to eat my stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, you know, we can continue this. We can continue this in the group too. Does anyone else have any other questions or about this, or what do you think about this? Anyone else? Well, somebody's working from a whole quarter from west to north. Good. How many else have? A lot of people have a whole quarter. That's kind of cool. That just, isn't that interesting, Bridget, that that's happening naturally?
Yeah, I have a whole quarter as well.
You know, it's funny. We have like a lot of people with a whole quarter. That's kind of funny because last year in the Windwork Spring, we dismembered ourselves all down to 1/4. So this is kind of funny.
Well, and I also am curious about the resistance in the body, even though we release the resistance, like how much of that is mirrored in the directionals that I'll be working through.
Well,
like
you know, you'll find out.
yeah, because when I think of my body, a lot of it was in the upper region. So that would be like the north and then down into the east. So that's where I was holding the resistance. That's where I'm going to be working.
Awesome. I hope you guys all continue this over on the Wind Clan, and really you can email me and you know, and let us know. And I really do hope that some of you come along on this journey with us for the Windwork basics. I wonder if, you know, and see how we can go further together, because we really do need each other now. And the wind is certainly whipping out there, and there's so much wisdom here. And I think that I'm excited about this new epoch, everyone. I'm really excited because I think we've been distanced from ourselves, for nature, for like 12,000 years, and how much fun it is going to be coming back and remembering all of these ancient wisdom tools and really working them, and giving yourself permission to use these supernatural powers in everything you do. Anyone else have anything to say before we end this? And
yes.
Okay.
Wondering, now that we've used the spiral and we've taken it down to the earth, do we have to do anything to close that off or stop that or whatever?
No, you just need to make sure you strengthen that connection every day.
And
So,
how do I do that?
well, you could do it by, when you're in the showers, making sure you're sending that down into the earth, or taking a wind walk. If people don't have my book, there's some great tools in here in Winds of Spirit to help do that. And that's all what that's all what the Windwork Basics is about, strengthening our resolves for this time. But a simple thing you can do if you're not sure if you're in your body enough is jump up and down 10 times. And you'll get right back in your body quicker than, Easter bunny at spring.
Thank you, Renee.
Thank you. And I really am honored to be able to sit here with all of you and all the people who are going to listen to this at home later. And please come over to the Wind Clan, ask questions. And let's make this possible, and let's bring in the wind cooperation together. So thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.